ends at the Illinois Capitol without a bill to keep the Chicago Bears from moving across state lines. But the stadium saga is far from over. Tonight, a senior advisor to Mayor Brandon Johnson gets to the point.
From Chicago's very own, with WGN political editor Tamon Bradley, this is The Point.
Good evening. The spring legislative session ended early this morning without a final deal to help the Chicago Bears build a new stadium in Illinois. In the last 24 hours, lawmakers scrapped the long-debated mega projects pilot bill in favor of a new public-private arrangement. The change might help convince enough Chicago Democrats to pass the bill in the Senate, but in the House, they weren't ready to act.
The question, I don't think, is how this came together last night, but that we did anything at all. There was an enormous undercurrent in our caucus to not do anything.
The reality is I wasn't willing to give up billions of dollars of taxpayer money in order to give it to a billionaire-owned family or team.
The vote hasn't moved the needle with the Chicago Bears. The team said today they're evaluating their options in both Arlington Heights and Hammond, Indiana. And they still expect a decision sometime in the early summer. Not mentioned by the Bears today were any considerations of staying in Chicago. Jason Lee, senior advisor to Mayor Brandon Johnson, is here to talk about it. Jason, welcome to The Point.
Thank you, Tamon. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Spring session ended without a bill passing both chambers. So is Chicago back in the game, or are the Bears headed to Hammond?
I think Chicago is certainly back on the table. I mean, Senator Cunningham and the other legislators in the Senate made clear that part of the attractiveness of the bill that they passed out of their House is it created a pathway for Chicago to present this proposal to the Chicago Bears. That was the only legislation that had any support in the Senate. The mega projects legislation that was focused towards Arlington didn't even make it to caucus, much less the floor. And if Illinois is still interested and invested in retaining the Chicago Bears, as we should be, as the city of Chicago is, then Chicago should be the centerpiece of our future conversations with the Bears. And I think we have the opportunity to put together a proposal that is far more attractive than what they are looking at in Indiana.
Where would a new stadium in Chicago be built, and how would it be paid for?
Well, from the beginning, from April 2024 till now, we've been clear that the best model for a new football stadium in Illinois or a new dome stadium in Illinois is, public infrastructure, public ownership, and leveraging a sports authority to provide financial support for a publicly owned stadium. The Senate caucus came to the same conclusion yesterday. So we would put forward that same proposal. We have a vehicle called ISFA that exists, the Illinois Sports Finance Authority. It has an existing revenue source, which is paid for by Chicago visitors. It has been used to fund publicly owned stadiums before. It is the model for which the bill sponsors used to craft their language that passed out of the Senate last night. Or early this morning, rather. And so we believe that is the model that we need to use moving forward. In terms of location, the Bears made clear that they have a strong interest in building a new stadium on the lakefront in Chicago. The NFL made very clear that they are interested in having a dome stadium on the lakefront. It's some of the most valuable real estate in the entire NFL. And we believe that's what we should pursue. The economic opportunities are significant in downtown Chicago.
And Jason, I know the NFL also likes the picture for Sunday Night Football. You know, it's very fancy. You see the lakefront. Why do the Bears publicly keep saying, though, that Chicago is not viable?
Look, I think it's a negotiating and a leverage tactic. The Bears spent millions of dollars putting together a proposal to build a stadium on the lakefront. At the time, they were met with resistance and inaction from the state. Fast forward to today, and the same model that the Bears proposed and we supported is the model that the state wants to use moving forward. That's a model that supports a stadium a publicly owned stadium at the lakefront. The reason why the Bears spent millions of dollars putting together that proposal after they had already paid about $200 million buying the land in Arlington Heights, is because when they looked at the economics of a dome stadium in Chicago, with the density, with all of the other economic activity, the opportunities were greater in Chicago to economically benefit. And again, we already spoke to the fact that the league was very much interested in the Bears staying in that site. So obviously, because they were met with resistance, they were told that the only way to get a stadium in Illinois was to pursue an alternative model, a model that only made sense in Arlington. That was private ownership and massive property tax breaks. What we always contended was that model was worse for taxpayers in the state of Illinois. As the reports recently cited, you're talking about $1.5 billion to maybe $3 billion of property tax breaks to support a private stadium. There's a reason why that bill couldn't even get to caucus. Property taxes are one of the biggest challenges we face in Illinois. Crafting a plan around displacing and subverting property taxes that go to local taxing bodies is not going to fly with legislators who have to answer to their constituents.
I got you, Jason. And I have about 5 seconds left. Friends of the Park, would they be on board with the lakefront?
Look, the research that we did and the Bears did suggested that the plan put forward can survive a legal challenge.
All right. Jason Lee, Senior Advisor to Mayor Brandon Johnson. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Taman. Happy to be here.
We're back in 60 seconds. While lawmakers fell short of finding an agreement on the Bears project before the deadline, they were able to pass a budget in the overnight hours. Today, Governor Pritzker praised the final compromise.
The work of the legislative session that we've just completed was informed by the priorities and values of Illinois families.
It's a $56 billion spending plan. Sales tax revenue from high gas prices will be diverted to day-to-day operations. Sales tax revenue on sugary beverages has also been redirected. New taxes will be collected on prediction markets, crypto, and fantasy sports. Local government's cut of state income taxes was restored to the level it was expected before Governor Pritzker proposed a slight reduction. And K-12 education spending increases by $350 million. Republicans say new taxes in the bill will not improve the state's fiscal health. Now, before leaving Springfield, we caught up with a familiar face. Patrick Finkston of the Illinois. My goodness, I don't get why we were here to 5 a.m. dealing with the budget. I certainly understand the Bears aspect, but the budget was posted Saturday night. Why did this take all night?
That's a really good question, and it's one that I don't know the answer to, and I don't know that anybody knows the answer to. The reality is we didn't see revenue numbers. We didn't see the revenue bill until later on Sunday. There's always this little game of chicken between the House and Senate because nobody wants to have one gotten over on them by the other chamber. There was an incident a few years ago where the Senate passed the budget and left town, and the House was kind of left hanging until 5 a.m. or something. So there's always a little bit of gamesmanship, even among supermajority Democrats, but it's the inefficiency that has driven us crazy for how many years around this place, that we're always doing the biggest stuff of the year, $56 billion of our money, getting spent at 2:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning.
And Governor Pritzker in his post-game press conference really wanted to stress that it's a budget that protects Illinois from cuts from the federal government. Lots of talk about President Trump. Do you think he can make that claim?
It's also a budget that raises $800 million in taxes and fund sweeps and benefits.
Well, President Harmon said not on real people, right?
Well, I mean, everything goes back to people, though, right? If it's on a business, it's going to get back to people. They're going to raise costs. It's going to, whether it's crypto or whether it's social media. I mean, the costs always find their way back to the consumer, and it's a little bit confusing sometimes for how the governor lays everything at the feet of Donald Trump. State's budget was bad before Donald Trump was president. The taxes were high before Donald Trump was president. The government was inefficient before Donald Trump was president. Trump has made it worse, but also because of the inflated sales tax for gasoline, that's $150 million that they weren't expecting, that they're using to balance the budget. So they're benefiting from the war while the governor is up criticizing it.
The governor points to there's a break in sales tax so that people can buy back to school supplies, time to the start of the school year. And there's measures like that to provide families with relief. Do you think that's enough, that'll connect with people in terms of what they're looking for to make things more affordable right now?
Well, they're all campaign talking points, but let's be real, that the things that are really impacting real people, real families right now are the cost of gas, the cost of energy bills, and the cost of property taxes. Nothing on those in this legislative session. They had a chance with all the money in the road fund to temporarily reduce or suspend the 50-cent a gallon gasoline tax. Instead, they're going to stop it from going up 1.5 cents. Thanks for that. And no real reform in property taxes. No real energy put into energy, and we're left paying those higher costs while they talk about school supplies.
Patrick Finkston of the Illinois. Thank you.
Let's get some sleep.
What a
I need
long
some
weekend.
sleep.
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks, man. Tonight, a tip of the hat to Spencer Leak Jr. of Leak & Sons, a prominent Chicago. Leak helped run his family's funeral home for years. He recently handled funeral arrangements for Reverend Jesse Jackson, and he died this week. Our thoughts are with his family tonight. And that is The Point. I'm Tamon Bradley. We're back with more news tonight at 9 o'clock. Don't forget about the forecasters next on WGN+. Good night.